Hello and good morning, feeders. Today is March 17th, 2022, and my name is DJ. Joining me today, as always, we have Feeder Finance Patrick. Pat, if you'd like to say hello to our lovely users at home.
Hey guys.
Hey, so this week has been a long time coming. We finally have the roadmap. Ah, cue holy music. So wow, this has been a long time coming, I'd say. How long would you say this has taken you to come up with all of quarter one?
Yeah, pretty much. And the hard thing was in that 3 months, a lot of things have happened in DeFi as usual. We had other ideas we wanted to do. We put it in the roadmap, and then a month later, that thing is no longer viable just because of how the market changes. And so it was constantly changing. Like I think we did the roadmap maybe 3-4 times over that 3 months, or it's even until the very last couple minutes there were changes.
Goodness.
So it was tough. But the good thing was we didn't stop doing anything over that period. So we were building stuff, and that also affected the roadmap because then we had to take things out of the future plans because it became reality before the roadmap came out. So yeah, took quite a while.
So let's take a look at this roadmap. Let's start with where we've been. So quarter one, it looks like I don't want to say we missed the mark, but it looks like we delivered 2 chains versus what we initially planned on 10, I think it was.
Yeah, we were thinking about just going full on with vaults
Right.
initially, and that was what we actually planned to put into the roadmap before it actually launched or released. And then what we realized was that a lot of the UI, well, we anticipated the amount of UI changes and improvements that we needed to make for the P2P.
Right.
And that took a lot of our time and effort. And so that affected how many vaults we could build. But also, technically, we've completed like 3 chains already. The problem was their own sort of infrastructure that had some problems.
Right.
In one case, the gas issues on their own chain had a problem. So the vaults couldn't be launched because the compounding would be way too expensive for the vaults to auto compound. And in other cases, there were other issues. So it was a mixture of technical difficulties, but also resource constraints that affected that. And so we are less ambitious on the vaults, but there are also strategic or tactical. It's a strategic decision as well, because the industry is, and that's my fear, and it might be useful to talk about this for our community members who are DeFi investors. And my view, and I share that with Jimmy, is that there is a real risk that vaults as they are could die, and that's because the industry is moving away from just printing incentives without any conditions. And
Right.
That makes sense because people learned that when you just print money, they are worthless. They are worth less over time, and eventually they are worthless. And a lot of the projects that do that has died today. And that's not a fault. It's not their fault because that's how the industry started, and people learn and people make mistakes, and the industry develops and it evolves. And so the typical vault structure today relies on incentives being given without any strings attached. And I fear that is changing because new protocols, the industry is evolving towards new protocols, incentivizing with locked structures, and that would basically make all of these vaults incapable of working in all these new products or in all these new protocols that are launching.
Correct.
And so we're slowing down on the vault as it is because there is a risk that they would not work in 6 or 12 months because all these protocols will change the way they print money. And so we're more cautious there, and so that's why we also lower our expectation for launch of vaults. We're still ambitious in that we're aiming to launch roughly 5 chains and 500 products, but we may have to create new vault structures that are more unique and more advanced that allows for us to be able to auto compound and yield optimize for these new incentive structures. And I think the coolest thing about our new vaults, and that's also the reason why we had a delay, was because we also changed our vault contract to create receipt tokens, and we talked about that. And this is actually a reaction to the way we're seeing the market, where when you have incentives that are locked for a period of time, people can't access their funds. For instance, let's say you have to lock your capital for 30 days in order to receive, a boost in your rewards. You lock away your money for 30 days.
Right.
And the cool thing about our new vault structure is that we actually create liquidity for that, because you're going through the vault to lock that capital, and in exchange you receive a receipt token that represents that claim. And so essentially that is a new vault structure that will be very useful when the time comes where the industry fully evolves into a more sophisticated or more conservative, sustainable type of incentive structure.
Absolutely. And you've appropriately named it Vampire Vaults.
Well, we're jumping here, but we can actually go there since we're on the topic of vaults. So that what I spoke about was our general vault.
Yeah, that's a totally different thing. Oh my god, yeah, I am jumping the gun here.
No, but I think that it might make sense to just jump on that right away, just because we're on the topic of vaults, and we can and because I think it's a good segue to that. And
Fair.
The number one, right? We changed the vault structure where we create receipt tokens, which not only allows that to be linked with the P2P, and we can talk about that because it's to be honest, all of this is linked together in some shape or form, because we're trying to create things that are useful and can be built on top of, so that as we grow, we create this exponential utility, exponential growth of utility for the platform as all these products sort of work together. And so we create these new vaults that have receipt tokens. They can be used to collateralize on the P2P, but also we'll probably look into creating new vault structures, which and just a tip or an insight here, we are also in discussion with other projects that have these locked incentive structures that do want to have vaults built for them, and nobody's doing it because it's just hard to do. And
right.
And as long as BFE isn't forced to do it, they wouldn't do it because it's just harder to do. And so that might be a niche for us to go into on the vault side, because it's not about speed now; it's more about our dedication to building these unique vaults. And so coming to the topic of unique vaults, we've also, and just a side note, all these Feeder Finance Labs products are conceptual. We haven't gone through all of the tiny technical details, but they're a concept we think makes sense. And the first one here, the Vampire Vault, is, and bear with me here because I do hope it creates some backlash, but it's a good thing because we need that publicity. But we have all of these projects that still go about the route where they're just printing millions and millions of tokens. For some reason people believe would appreciate in value, even though they have absolutely no utility.
Right.
And in my world, that's a Ponzi. And the sad thing really is that a lot of the devs in the industry are building their personal vaults that basically take the rewards, sell them automatically, and turn them into stables or whatever else token they want to hold. And they can do that because they're devs. And a lot of us, mere earth
plebeians
like you and I, we can't do that because we're no genius, and like Jimmy and the other guys doing that. We have to do it manually if we want to do it. And I mean, we can all agree that we all do it because if they want to give us free money, we'll take it, right?
Right.
The only problem is we have to do it manually once a day, or maybe a couple times a day, or a couple times a week.
Right.
Meanwhile, all these smart guys are doing it every freaking 5 minutes, right? And they can do it automatically because they can dev. And aside from that fact, there are also people in the community that have asked for this before. And what this is it's a vault that does exactly that. So we're going to vampire all these guys who create Ponzi's and will take their money because that's what they're offering us. And I don't think that's something wrong because they know, right? They are aware and they should expect that this is what people do, and people are doing it for the people that can. And so we're just basically doing what other people are already doing themselves, but we're offering it for people that can. And that's what the Vampire Vault is. And to be honest, I can't guarantee whether or not you can make a profit, because the thing about these projects that print millions is a lot of the value that is created because you auto compound back to the token. Just their token is going to zero. It's a matter of whether or not the speed of the reward exceeds the speed at which the price of the token declines.
Right.
And so if you're selling the tokens without auto compounding, there is a risk if the price declines faster than the rate at which you're selling that you may lose money. So I can't guarantee whether this vampire is going to kill them or kill us, but it's going to be available to you. And if there are new projects launching that's printing and we check their contract and they're safe, we'll launch some vaults that basically just vampire it. And if you guys want to take some risks and just want to have fun and kill these guys, well, there's a product for that. And you and I talked offline earlier about what kind of backlash this is going to cause, right? Like, the community might be like, oh, these guys are so anti-community, so anti-crypto, they're trying to kill off other projects, blah blah blah. And sure, if you want to take that stand, go ahead and do it big, do it loud, and make sure everybody does it in the industry, because that's definitely something we need. We need everybody to be coming to Peter Finance and say, who are these guys trying to kill off other projects? Who are these bad guys, right? Just come here, see what we're doing, see what kind of project we built, and be amazed, right? Because I mean, you said it perfectly offline. Like, any kind of publicity, good or bad, is good publicity for us.
Absolutely.
So let's hope that's the let's hope that's the impact we create. So yeah, that's Vampire Vault.
Beautiful. Wow. That was beautiful, Pat. That's probably the most gusto I've heard from you in a while. I really like that product offering, and I think it's a unique product offering that will really give a lot of value to our users here, but also give a lot of value to people just entering into our ecosystem. So great job there. While we're on the topic of Feeder Finance Labs, two other interesting things that you have posted here: DeFi short selling and decentralized OTC. Can you talk a little bit about DeFi short selling and what advantages that has for low liquidity coins?
Yeah. So that's, and again, it's conceptual, right? So we don't have the exact mechanics all worked out, but in concept, it's really simple.
Sure.
So this would be built on top of the P2P structure. The problem with the current P2P contract in the individual sense, the MVP one-on-one contract, is that you can't borrow or lend the exact same token.
Right.
And I doubt there's a need for that at the moment anyway. But what we'll launch with the feeder loan shop, which is, let's just go there so we can link it back here.
Sure.
Is so the addition to the feeder P2P lending is the feeder loan shop, which basically what it does is, when, let's say you have 100,000 USDC, and instead of having to, manage 100 different loans worth, 1,000, you could basically just deposit 100,000 into this pool, and then you could take which collaterals you would accept. So you could take FTM, BNB, feed as feed, FTM, USDC. You take all of these, and you can then set the term for each of these collaterals that you accept. So, you could say, I accept feed for, I would lend at 35%, and accept 50% LTV for feed. And then you would say, I would accept BNB BUSD, and I would be able to lend that at 25% and 35% LTV, whatever. So it allowing for you to do that simplifies, which is one of the pain point of P2P as it is that it would simplify the process for the lender and reduce the level of maintenance that the lender would have to do. So instead of having to manage all these loans, you just create a pool, put all your free capital in there. And a side note, you could just deposit in one of these stable vaults where you're earning 7% and then deposit that. So you're earning 7% anyway. And if somebody borrows that, you're earning on top of that. So that's the cool thing. So that's what the future loan shop is. So you're parking money similarly to how you do it at Venus or Guys or Tranquil on Harmony and stuff like that. You're just parking your capital and you're just waiting for people to come in and borrow, and it would do it automatically for you. If somebody doesn't pay, it would liquidate. If somebody pays, it would then take the money back and put it back into the pool and then lend it out again.
So it's kind of like
small chunks.
It's kind of like a V2 of a money market, like Aave, yeah.
Yeah. But the difference there is that you're not pooling with everybody else,
right?
Because it's not flexible in that. Because in Aave, you're lending money into a pool with everybody else, and you abide to the rates and the LTV that the protocol sets with the government and all that. Right. In this case, if you don't want to lend your USDC at 7%, you don't have to. Like if you say, I'm willing to take risks, I'm willing to accept. What are meme coins? I don't think any meme coin exists these days anymore. They all died. Let's say Floki BNB, right? You're saying I'm willing to take risks. I can take BNB Floki as collateral, but I'm gonna need 65% rate of return for you to lend USDCs, and I'm only taking 35% LTV. You can do that here. You can't do that on Aave,
right?
Or anywhere else. So it's similar in that you create a pool of your own. And you set the terms. You're the one to set the terms, and the borrower has that optionality to, go through all these pools and see which collateral that the borrower has or is willing to go and acquire to borrow these assets that are lending. So that's the shop, right? And coming back to what the short selling is that when you take that shop and you set the terms to be, say, collateralized feed and borrow feed.
Okay.
What that means is that the lender could be lending at 99% or even 100% LTV, essentially risk-free, because the collateral is the same token that you're lending out. So if they doesn't pay you back, or if the borrower doesn't pay back, you take that collateral, right? And you're not losing anything. But if they do, take the interest. So on the lender side, you're providing liquidity for people that want to borrow assets that they already own. And the question then is, why would the borrower want to borrow an asset they already own? And the answer is, in this case, probably they want to short sell. They just don't want to sell their own token.
Right.
They might see a short-term opportunity where the market's falling, and they want to, or even lever their, they might have 100,000 feet, they collateralize 50K. They borrow another 50K and they keep their 50K. All kinds of strategies is possible. And so as long as there is a lender and there's a borrower, there's a market for it, all we have to do, because this is essentially built, right? Like if we have the loan shop, the product is done. It's just a matter of creating a UI that simplifies and focuses on a short selling perspective.
Right.
So that's what we need to think about and build, so that we create a new product essentially off of what we already built. So it's just a new use case for a thing we already built, and we hope that there are more of these things coming that are going to come about, because P2P and P2P loan shop and GameFi and art NFT lending and all of that, there's a lot of strategies and opportunities that we can build on top of. And it doesn't have to be us. I mean, technically, since it's super decentralized, I mean, it's 100% decentralized technically. Any other project, if they are willing or able to, can build products and their own project on top of the P2P if they want to, because they can.
Right.
So that's what the short selling is.
Interesting. Okay. Circling back to the feeder loan shop, the GameFi and art NFT lending, will that also be encompassed within the feeder loan shop?
I don't. Perhaps really. I haven't thought about creating a full structure for these. I'm not sure if it's possible because NFTs are unique. But it would definitely work in a peer-to-peer structure. And what that is basically instead of allowing for tokens, we're allowing for NFTs, right? There's just different types of tokens. I think they're ERCs 721 or something like that. I can't.
721s and 1155s.
Exactly. Yeah. Thanks for that.
Yep.
So we're just changing the acceptable token contract, right? So instead of tokens, you're accepting NFTs as a collateral or as a lending asset. So the use case there is there are two use cases, right? Either you own a Bored Ape, for instance, and they're worth $1 million, and you just don't want to sell, but you want to buy a new car.
Right.
You collateralize the Bored Ape and you borrow $500K, right? And as long as you pay back your loan, you get your Bored Ape back. So there's no risk there as long as you pay back. That's one use case. The other use case is if you're, instead of collateralizing NFTs, you can borrow NFTs. What you can do is all these GameFi projects where you have to buy heroes that in some cases are worth thousands, tens of thousands. And so instead of having to take that risk and buy these heroes to play the game or to benefit from their perks, you could borrow them and not take that risk, right? So you put in, instead of buying a 50K worth hero, you put in 70K in USDC, and you take that hero and you do whatever you do with that hero, and then you bring that hero back and pay some interest. And that's the use case. And I think that's also a powerful use case as long as, and we hope, right, that the metaverse and all the GameFi, it was a big thing for a while. It's kind of slowed down, but I do think the metaverse is going to be huge. And there is a market for this, especially if the metaverse moves towards more of the property, sandbox type metaverse where you're trading items, you're trading land, you're trading buildings or whatever on these platforms. You could have bought a plot on Sandbox, for instance, and rent it out, right? And essentially that's what you can do. You lend out your plot. And somebody would have to collateralize some amount of money and pay you interest. And so there's a bunch of use case there as well. So that's the concept.
Wow, that's beautiful, honestly. So the GameFi and art NFT lending, that would basically take place within the NFT and loan marketplace, not the feeder loan shop, correct?
No, that would be so we'll have it's the same contract with slight change to what the token is acceptable, but it probably require a new UI specific to the NFT.
Right.
So it's a new section, right? So instead of lending, it might be token lending and NFT lending, for instance, on the UI.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Well, moving on to our next thing here. 5 new chains and 500 product options. Is there any hint as to what the next chain might be?
I mean, I can probably say it. Because so we've done Harmony. We faced some technical difficulties there with some gas issues, and if you're on Harmony, you probably know about it.
My God, yeah.
There's some gas issues there.
Yeah.
We did Aurora, and there's some issues there too. I can't recall, but Jim was saying there's some issues that was maybe a month ago, so I don't recall technically. We're going to Polygon. I don't think there is any issue there. So we're quite ready there. We just need to test some vaults. And I think the other two, and I think you already see the network addition on the UI. We're probably going to Arbitrum too, because and here's another not financial advice type of opinion. I think layer 2 Ethereum will be huge this year. So that's something we also want to be on.
Right.
So anything layer 2, if there is a product to be launched, we want to be there. And I think Arbitrum is one of the guys leading the chart there. So that's where we're going. And the timing wise, I can't tell, depending on Jimmy and some technical hurdles we have to go through, but that's the short list.
That is a beautiful short list, by the way. I just want to say that. As an aside, though, as far as these layer 2, ETH layer 2s go, do you guys plan on adding all of the ETH layer 2s, like Optimism and ZK Sync as well, or just Arbitrum? Or still very much up in the air right now?
Up in the air, and also depending on the DeFi ecosystem there as well.
Right.
I mean, yeah, I guess, and it's also, and I think I'm not sure if all of them are, but most of them are EVM. So that's the key thing as well. They have to be EVM.
Right. I believe all three of those are EVM because they are ETH layer 2. They still function off ETH network. Layer 2s are a mess. I'd rather just use a cheaper layer 1 personally.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay. Wow, that's an amazing short list. I can't wait for Harmony there. I'm a big Harmony fan. If anybody's ever paid attention to my Twitter, so I'm really excited for that one. It's a nice little chain. I like Aurora too. I was playing around with the Moonlight Farmers. That's a fun little game.
Yeah. No, Aurora's cool. Another thing that's cool, and we're sidestepping topics here, but cool things to discuss, and I hope the community likes it. But check out Metis too. Metis is pretty cool. I like Tethys is a clean and nice swapping lending protocols. So I do think the layer 2 stuff is coming. Just because I think the layer 1 was just 2021, right? 2022 is going to look. People are going to look for something different, and with ETH 2.0 coming, the scalability, all that hype, and all that capital flowing in, I think layer 2 is going to be huge.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, and the longer and longer it takes for ETH 2.0 to roll out, I believe, the bigger the use case comes for these layer 2s. So yeah, great job on going that route as well. I think that's definitely a necessary direction for us to be taking if we're trying to hit every available chain, or at least, on paper, trying to hit every available chain. Obviously that comes down to, a bunch of different factors, but the idea overall is that we'd like to be everywhere.
Yep.
So circling down to the wealth management area, portfolio performance tracking. Now, we've added the historical balance in the past and, estimates of returns and, things like that. So what new features can users expect to see here in regards to things like tracking the performance of their portfolio or just notifications within the market?
So what we added was tracking performance of individual investments.
Mm-hmm.
And so the next step here would be to aggregate all of that into your portfolio, right? That's the obvious next step.
Right.
We'll do that, but also aggregating across chains. It sounds simple. It's not, because if you think about how it's done on the back end, right? We have to go through all of the products that exist and check whether you have invested, when you have invested, when you left, aggregated that, and across all these chains. And as we add more chains, it becomes more complex.
That's a lot of data.
Yeah, for one simple feature that tells you, instead of just the product, your portfolio performance, that's a lot of things we have to get right. And
oh yeah,
and the problem with that is if one thing goes wrong, and one tiny code is written incorrectly, it takes hours to find where the problem is and debug.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we're building as a next step for the wealth management side. And we have plans for, and we we consistently talk about how we want to grow the wealth management side and make that simple and allow for people to build a wealth management business on top of that. We're still thinking about that, and I hope in the next roadmap or maybe the roadmap after that, when we think the market is more ready for that type of product, we'll add it, right? Because we're still trying to build an all-in-one platform where people can manage their DeFi experience for themselves and for others, if possible, more easily. But for now, it focuses on your own investment. So now we add the product performance tracking, and then the product and market notifications. And I think it's pretty useful because there are a lot of products and there are a lot of things going on in DeFi, a lot of tokens. And if you think about, I think we have like, just for USDC, we have maybe 20 products across 3 chains right now. And to be able to be notified that, if you're looking for yields on stable, a fault on AVAX called this and that just is printing 7%, 8%, or it just jumped 50% because whatever. So we have to automate a way to notify you as an investor what is happening with yields and with products. So if we launch new product, you'll be notified. If a major significant change in yields is happening within our product universe, you'll be notified. And that way, we hope that would simplify your experience, because I don't think it makes sense for you guys to go through the entire list of products. And I don't think it's even possible for you to go through the entire list and make sense of it every single day.
Right.
So this would be our way of trying to simplify that for you. As we add more product, as we add more chains, we'll make it more simple by just telling you what we think you should know as and when they happen.
Absolutely. I think the more data we allow our users to access, and the more information that we make readily available for them, the better and more informed decisions that they can make. So absolutely great job there. Moving down to our DeFi platform tools. I'm really excited about this one. It looks like you guys are trying to create a bridge aggregator. It's always a mess trying to move money between certain ecosystems. I know some bridges only take certain tokens and some won't route others. So it's a really hard thing to get right. So what exactly does a bridge aggregator look like to you? And how do you imagine implementing it into Feeder Finance's ecosystem?
So there are 2 routes we're thinking about going with this.
Okay.
Either, and we have discussions with somebody who is already doing it and has been doing it successfully, and even one of the biggest protocols are using that. We've discussed with them. They actually approached us, and we could aggregate them, the aggregator, so that the good thing with that is that we let the people that focus on their niche do their thing,
right?
While we provide you with all the tools and services that you need, staying on Feeder.
No need to reinvent the wheel, right?
Exactly, yeah. And so that's one way to do it. The other way is to build one ourselves. That's more complex. And surprisingly, it's not that hard, even though and I can't talk to the technicalities. I just had this discussion with Jimmy yesterday, because this is relatively recent. So Jimmy went through the contracts of all these bridges, and he told me he was surprised how technically easy it is, I guess, for him. So he's contemplating whether or not he should build one himself, just because the freaking fees are so high.
Yep. Oh my God, yeah.
And all, yeah, I mean, and so instead of you guys paying everybody else, and I mean, you're here users and owners of the platform, why don't we keep money in house, right? So instead of paying somebody else, but that's not decided. It's more likely we'll not do it ourselves, just because it introduces risk as well, and a lot of costs in terms of auditing and all that, and especially auditing. That's going to cost quite a bit, just because bridges are risky stuff. So there are 2 ways we could go, but it's more likely we'll go with the bridge aggregator we've spoken to. And what they do is they do aggregating of bridges. And what that means is think of 1inch where they're aggregating all these dexes and choosing the best rates for you to swap. What this guy does is they offer you lists of bridges for your selected token and your selected destination, and they tell you which is the cheapest to swap, which is the fastest to swap, and stuff like that. And all we have to do is similar to how we add a ramp, fiat ramp, is we just have to create a UI that support them. And the good thing in this case actually is that we've discussed with them the ability for us to share fees. So we could have our own fee layer on top of this, and technically they're not charging any fees yet for the bridge aggregator itself, but going through the aggregator, you still go to the bridge, so the bridge would still charge.
Right.
But again, if it's simpler for you to stay on feeder and you pay an extra 0.1%, for instance, to feeder, which goes to the staking pool and everybody wins, you might choose to do that. Or if not, you go out there and find the bridge you want to use and you do that and skip the 0.1%. So that's your choice. So that might be, that's sort of what we're thinking of doing with the bridge aggregator.
Yeah, no, I think it's such a big headache to constantly, have to, oh, I want to move money from, Harmony over to Polygon. Typically I just use the Synapse bridge, but there's some cases where, it's like, oh, you have to bring this specific token over, or it's only one type of token we'll take, or, so you might have to, swap whatever token you were trying to bring over into something else, and then bring it over, and then swap back into whatever it is you want. So it removes a lot of the headaches, I think, having a product like this. And knowing a couple bridge aggregators and having used their products in the past before, I can definitely say that it definitely helps to be able to save on the fees there. So definitely a really good step, I believe, as we continue to move into different chains to be able to have this kind of tool available to our users. So really great job there. Before we get into the exchange V2, because I know that one's going to be a bit much, let's talk a little bit about the converter V2. So we've already got a simple LP Zap tool available through, I believe it's 1inch. What exactly does a converter V2 mean? To me, and to most of our community, I imagine, it seems like we already have a converter. So what exactly does a V2 mean?
So the difference is the way our converter works right now is that it's linked specifically to each of the vaults.
Okay.
And that will continue to be the case. So all of the vaults will still continue to have that flow where you select the vault, and you have the ability to convert right then and there and then deposit. That still maintains. But
okay.
The addition here is that we'll isolate, because what we actually found out through our work on creating APIs that collect statistics, and I know a lot of you guys are waiting for that. From that work, we found out that one of the key revenue drivers for the platform really is the converter. We have over 5x the amount of converting volume than the actual TVL. And if you think about that, that's quite a bit, because
wow.
It's just recurring, right? It's recurring. People
right.
are swapping in and out of vaults, and they do that through our converter, and they're paying 0.1% when they go in and when they go out. And so it's a big revenue driver. And so we want to lever on that by isolating the converter and basically allow the converter to be its own product, where let's say we cover Pancake, we cover Spooky, we cover DFK on Harmony, or we cover Uniswap on Ethereum, wherever. Once we select and cover a DEX, all of the liquidity pools in that DEX will be convertible to you.
Oh man, okay.
So it doesn't matter if we have a vault. Whenever you need to convert from a token to an LP or back, you come here and you can do that for any pairs that, especially, specifically on all of the top DEXs on all of the platform, or all of the networks that we cover, you'll be able to do that. So that's basically turning what was, a supportive or a complementary feature, we're turning that into its own product, which is going to be very useful.
Absolutely. I think that that in and of itself is something that could just be its own project. I think there's a lot of value there, and like you said, it's what 5 times our TVL in terms of volume. Like, that's insane. So yeah, really makes sense to step up the amount of wow, what's the word I'm looking for here? Amount of features, I guess. Wow, really slipping my mind today. Okay, I need more coffee. I think it's a very valuable product, and I think that's gonna, again, continue to add value to the ecosystem. There's a lot of great things you guys are doing here. So the new exchange V2, previously we were using 1inch. What exactly do you guys imagine for this new exchange V2 swap?
So the problem with using 1inch is that we have to abide by the coverage.
Yep.
And if we want to go 10 chains, we can't go 10 chains without exchange, and you can see that by us not covering the exchange for Phantom.
Yep.
Even though Phantom is one of our key market, is our key market at this point. That's because 1inch doesn't support Phantom. That's number one. Number two is we can't charge fees on top of our exchange.
Yep.
And so we're creating this utility. We're trying to aggregate all these products and services into one, all-in-one platform. And so, as you and I and all of our community members, as owners of this platform, we do, want to be rewarded for the work done, right? And so,
right.
and the value that we create. And so, instead of going through 1inch, we'll just create our own DEX aggregator, which isn't hard to do because we're not reinventing the wheel. We just take a wheel that has been invented and just
modify it
a bit, and put it on our own platform. And so that's the idea. And so that way we can cover all the chains that we go to. We can charge fees, and it's technically it's also widely used on the platform. I personally always use our own product, especially the exchange. I don't really go to any of these. I don't even go to 1chain themselves. I just go through the exchange just because everything's here, right? So having that cover, so instead of going to Spooky, I can use the exchange on Phantom as well. So that's the addition with the exchange.
That is really nice. Again, just really turning Feeder into this all-in-one DeFi platform. It's what you guys set out to do from the beginning, but it's really starting to take shape and really, starting to see the vision come together now. So this is all awesome stuff. I'm really proud of the work you guys have put in here, and I think this roadmap is a true testament to your guys' continued faith and development. So really great job here. Looking out into the future, I know that you guys have just said beyond in terms of the decentralized lending exchange, index and ETF options, and a few other things. Is there anything that you didn't put on the beyond section here that you'd like to discuss?
We have a lot of ideas, and the thing was we wanted to go further, right? As in, we wanted to plan ahead 6 months, 12 months, but the experience that we had with this particular roadmap was that, things just change so fast.
Yep.
The Tome fork season was, it was less than a month, or it was a month, and then it's gone. The Ohm was maybe 2 months old, and then it's gone. And so, and the cool thing about our project, which I think is the reason why we're still standing while a lot of the projects launched that are at similar age with us have died, is because we're flexible about how we build, right? And
right.
We're always looking at the market and trying to see what is going on and how we can adapt and build things that are, is aligned with where the market is. So we don't want to go too far ahead, just because if we say we're built this and that in 6 months, who knows what will happen in 6 weeks,
yeah.
So we'll continue to think about what comes next, and a lot of the things you see in the Q2 2022 is, I don't think most of them wouldn't have been thought of maybe 2 months ago. And it's a reflection of what we think will happen over the next 3 months and what could be useful. And for instance, short selling. I mean, if there is a bear market, somebody's going to look for ways to short. And
Right.
so that's what we think about. And what we see with the incentive structure changing from a freely incentivizing to a locked incentivizing structure, that's why there's a loan shop, and that's why there's decentralized OTC, because all these receipt tokens will not have liquidity, and somebody needs to be able to trade it or exchange it because it's useful to. That's why there's a decentralized OTC. People printing money, building Ponzi's, that might not last very long, but there will be Ponzi's in crypto for the time being, and the Vampire Vault will handle that. And so that's what is cool about the project, right? So we're always trying to build new things and improve upon what we've built as much as we can with the resource constraints that we have. But because of how conservative we have been and will continue to be, we'll stand and we'll keep moving forward with the industry until this industry grows into its full potential with the masses coming in, because even if you think the masses are here, they're not.
No. God, no.
So we're early, and we need to continue to be active and building, because when the time comes, we'll be there, and we'll be fully a full all-in-one DeFi platform with all the utilities and services and tools for them to use when the time comes.
Yeah. It seems like you guys are able to keep the project going and stay alive because you guys are constantly able to change direction and pivot. And that sort of agile structure for your team is something that I feel a lot of other teams do not have. They kind of stick to their guns, and, they say, oh, well, this is what we committed to. We're going down with this ship. And it's like, ooh, I feel like a lot of projects could benefit from, being able to change direction. So kudos to you guys for being able to remain adaptive to the constantly shifting conditions of the broader market. And I definitely think all these products in place help you continue to do that as well. Everything here is set for people that want to continue to grow wealth. That you have your options available for those that want to speculate, like the tome forks and stuff, but you also have more stable options as well. So, I think there's a little something for everybody here. And I think that as you continue to, flesh out this all-in-one platform, by the time it finally hits when the mainstream does enter, oh man, we're going to be in such a nice place.
Yeah, certainly.
So the decentralized lending exchange, again, we're just talking about the beyond here. What do you have in mind for that?
It's hard to. It's even further away than the feeder finance labs.
Oh, of course. I mean, everything, in this beyond section that we're talking about, and I'll preface this right now, purely speculative at this point, because, there's just, again, things could change, and who knows what could happen in the next few months. So, purely speculatively talking, just so it's prefaced, how do you imagine, or what does a decentralized lending exchange look like to you? Because that's one hell of a buzzword to create there, and I must say it looks really nice being able to say the DLEX,
Yeah. No, I think what we're thinking about conceptually is we're hoping to merge the DEX, the swapping mechanics of liquidity pools with lending.
Okay.
Because once the P2P and the loan shop ecosystem grows in sufficiently enough, there's going to be a lot of options to borrow, and a lot of options you could collateralize to borrow, and all of that. And we can build something that allows even more simplicity on top of all that, where a tool would allow for you to essentially work similar to how you interact with Aave or Geist or Venus, but indirectly interacting with the underlying loans and shops in the ecosystem. So that's the idea, and we hope we can do that. But I think it's what we think about in terms of a way to simplify what is currently, and we agree and do see that is a complex product, which is the lending.
Oh yeah.
And so we'll continue to build on top of that to increase its simplicity. And so that's I hope what it does.
Okay. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think something like that where, like you said, a lot of this loan stuff is a little difficult for anybody that's unfamiliar with how traditional loan markets work. I think something like that would definitely make it a lot easier for people. So that's a great step, I would think. And then DeFi index and ETF options. Again, would this be something where you guys don't bother reinventing the wheel and you outsource to someone, or do you think this is something that you'd rather create in-house?
It would depend on, I think, one thing. By that point, if the receipt token structure is widely used, which I hope it is, because it's just a logical
progression
for DeFi.
Yeah.
Yeah. If that's the case, then we don't have to reinvent the wheel, because then we can just adopt products that do issue receipt tokens and offer them to you.
Right.
Because that way you can then use those receipt tokens to, create liquidity with the lend and borrow.
Yep.
If it isn't at that point, we'll have to, tweak the wheel slightly, whereby we create these products that are index or ETF type structures where, you're investing in a multi-asset security, and have a receipt token for that to then have the liquidity while you're earning to, farm it or collateralize it. Because I think that's could possibly be where the market is heading, and we're seeing that with all these curve wars, solidly war, and all that wars. What we're seeing is that people are building protocols on top of locked protocols, in order to, build Ponzi's on top of Ponzi's. But in order to do that, you do need a receipt token that gives you a security that represents a claim on the assets deposited or locked. So
right.
So we'll see. But that's what the DeFi index and ETF options will be. So a more advanced investment options that are more diversified, and I think a lot of people are looking forward to.
And then the last bit here that you have, and yes, I agree. I'm really looking forward to the index and ETF options. I'd love to just throw something into some blue chips and just let it ride. But as far as the social content and social leadership stats, you guys have touched on some of the social DeFi aspects in the past before. So how do you guys kind of plan on expanding this, and what direction do you see it taking? Is it going to be something more akin to social media and a social network, or just take the reins here?
Yeah, I think it's the way I'm thinking about it is that yes, it is taking a route towards something like a social media, but it's more like a social finance platform, right? So it's so people will be able to have an opinion about a product, and express that, similar to how you're already doing that with reviews.
Yep.
But in a more personal way, where your current account, all you can do with the account on Peter Finance right now is change their name. But in the future, it will be more than that, where think about how eToro, if you're familiar with that platform, does it is you could have a private account or a public account, and in a public account, people will be able to follow you and see your investments, and benefit from your opinion or recommendation, which shouldn't be financial advice, and also all these social leadership stats where the more active you are on the platform, the more exposure you have, right? And but also we'll hope to create some incentives for people that are active, And what we think that it would eventually lead to is going back to future features for wealth management, for instance, where what we hope to build in the future is for people to be able to manage funds for others, which is it's down the road, but I think it's complementary to building your own brand. As an investor, if you start out with a social status, I guess, people knowing you as someone who's opinionated and gives out good investment advice, or is an expert in DeFi, someone like Satoshi or Vin, who are well versed in the ecosystem and is willing to share that knowledge. Building that status or social awareness of your own brand could eventually be beneficial. So once we launch a wealth management platform, for you to start to build your own wealth management business on top of DeFi, where you're managing other people's funds and are earning management fees for them.
On that note, have you guys thought about I believe it's called social trading? It's the idea where somebody Bit4x does it, where it's this idea where basically you kind of have like an expert trader basically post not their trades per se, but kind of like their returns on their portfolio, and it shows you what investment options they enter into, and so you can kind of lay out your portfolio structure in a similar fashion. Is that something you see possibly being added in the future?
It could be. I think it's also similar how we're thinking about, and it's all conceptual, right? But
Sure.
There's a couple of routes we could go for wealth management. You could either have someone manage a pool directly.
Yep.
But there are some risks associated with that, because you're basically handing over, right, your money to someone you don't know, because we're in a trustless universe here.
Yeah.
Which requires trust for some reason. And but the other route would be, for somebody to think of OnlyFans, for instance, right?
Sure.
You could be selling a strategy that is only private to somebody who is willing to, say, pay an entry fee or a subscription fee or whatever.
Right.
And in that way, they could update their strategy, and you could either say, right, I want to update my portfolio to this, or I don't. So that protects the investor from any malicious activity, right? Like if I'm managing a vault for you and you're depositing your money into my vault, I could say, right, I'm going to create a Patrick token, and I'm putting 100% of that pool into this Patrick token, and I run away with the money. But if I do it in such a way that you can approve reallocation of your portfolio before you make that choice, then that protects the investor from it. So it's like I said, there are multiple ways we can do it, and we'll think about it. And once we think the market is ready and we know how to do it securely in a way that is sustainable and protects everybody, we'll work on that. So that's still in the pipeline for that wealth management branch.
Absolutely. And again, just like to preface that most of the things we just talked about here in the last, 5-10 minutes, purely speculative at this moment. So all good things coming in the pipelines. Lots of good stuff here. I believe that is it for the roadmap, unless there's anything else you'd like to add there, Pat?
Yeah, I think just a final note. And I guess an ask to everybody here with us listening to this. The coolest thing about our lending protocol is that it allows for any project to join, because you can list any token on the platform and allow for any community in any project to start collateralizing their tokens. If they don't want to sell their token, they need liquidity, collateralize it, and borrow some money. For lenders, it's huge, because in a bear market, you get 4%, 5%, 7% USDC, which I know is huge compared to your local bank, but it's nothing in DeFi.
Right.
today you can get 35 to 50% here if you're, lending with feed collaterals or other collaterals that borrow offers exist right now. So, go out there, in any project that you're invested in, that you're a community member of, that you're involved with, go out there and tell them about us. And because it's not only helpful to us, but it's also helpful not only to the community members of these other projects having liquidity, it's helpful to the project because instead of people having to sell the token in order to get liquidity, they can just collateralize the token and borrow, right? And so, right. I mean, it's just a win for everybody, the way I see it. And so there's really no reason not to tell everybody about this. And that's the surest way for any project in crypto to grow. And that is through our community commitment and help. And we hope, we need your help. So we hope you do that. And thank you very much. And if you're sticking with us through this bear market and still with us today, thank you very much. And we look forward to years of building and growing.
Absolutely. As a final note, I would like to add that compared to where we were a year ago, a white website with, a cute little image of a gold pot of coins, and there was 3 metrics on the website: TVL, APR, and market cap. So considering we're looking at this roadmap of an all-in-one DeFi platform where we were just a simple yield farm so many days ago, it's really incredible to see the progress of where we've come from and where we're going. And I can't wait to be here next year and look back and say, wow, remember when we were going over the roadmap? Man, what a time. So we're going to continue to be here, guys, through the bear market. No matter what the token's price is, we're going to keep on building. It's what we're here for. It's what we aim to do. Future Finance will become an all-in-one DeFi platform. Just stick around and watch it happen. I believe that is all we have for you this week, folks. Oh, no, actually there isn't. There is one last thing. So aside from the roadmap, Pat, it looks like you guys recently announced a partnership with Hamster Labs. Would you like to go into some detail about that?
Yeah, just a quick note on that, since we'll have a lot more detail in our AMA actually tomorrow. I hope this audio comes up before that. It maybe not, but
yeah, Jim's probably sleeping.
Just a quick color there. Hamster Labs, they're a new fund investing in crypto. Mm-hmm. They're, the coolest thing about them really is the fact that they're going to be fully involved with trying to help us connect with people in the industry, with other projects, and stuff like that. And they're the type of fund that invests in founders and teams, because that's the way you invest in VC technically. Yeah. You commit to that project, you help that project to the best of your abilities, and that's what they aim to do for us, with us, growing with us. And so, looking forward to that AMA coming up tomorrow to tell you more about that with you guys. I hope if this comes out later, I hope you're there, and give our key man there in the AMA some support. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm really excited for that, and I'm really excited to see what other partnerships come. This is just one of many. I know there's still a few partnerships I don't think we've announced yet, if I'm correct. So I'm excited to see those come to a head as well. But on that note, I do believe, finally, that is all we have for you this week, folks. Be sure to like, subscribe, all that other fun jazz, and definitely be sure to get on Twitter and share that roadmap. This is definitely one of the biggest things we need to get out there. Everybody needs to know about this. Your mom, your uncle, your dog, tell them, let them know. Future Finance is here. We're here to make noise. So, thank you for watching, folks, and be sure to tune in next week where Pat and I will probably get into some other fun shenanigans. So, yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Bye-bye.